There is a season that nobody prepares you for. Not the seasons of visible growth, where you can point to what changed and feel the momentum carrying you forward. Not the seasons of obvious loss, where the grief is clear and the reason for pain makes sense even when it hurts. This is the season in between. The one where nothing seems to be happening. Where the prayers feel like they are bouncing off the ceiling. Where everyone around you seems to be moving into new chapters while you are still sitting in the same paragraph, wondering if you missed something. You did not miss something. And what feels like nothing is actually the season where some of the most permanent work of your entire life is being done underneath the surface of everything you can currently see. Today we are going to talk about what God is actually doing in the quiet, stuck, in between seasons that most people spend trying to escape rather than learning to read. Lamentations chapter 3 verse 26 says, "It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." That word quietly is doing something important in that verse. It is not describing passive resignation. In Hebrew, it carries the sense of stillness combined with confident expectation. The kind of quiet that belongs to someone who knows something is coming and is not panicking because it has not arrived yet. Not every silence is abandonment. Some silences are preparation, and learning to tell the difference changes everything. So let's talk about what God is specifically doing in the season that feels like nothing. He is doing the work that visibility would have interrupted. This is the first and most foundational thing happening in the quiet seasons, and it is the one most people never realize until they are years on the other side looking back. Some things can only be built in private. Character that does not crack under pressure cannot be constructed when everything is going well and people are watching and external evidence confirms that you are on the right track. It gets built in the seasons where there is no external evidence. Where the only reason you keep going is because something inside you has decided that what God said is more true than what your circumstances are showing. Consider what happened to David between the day Samuel anointed him king and the day he actually sat on the throne. Years of wilderness. Years of running from a man who was trying to kill him. Years of leading a band of people nobody else wanted, in circumstances nobody would have chosen, with a promise that must have felt increasingly distant the longer it went unfulfilled. And in all of that, David was learning something that the throne itself could never teach. He was learning what it meant to trust God with his life when God's goodness was not visible in his circumstances. The Psalms he wrote in caves, crying out to a God who felt absent, are still sustaining people 3,000 years later. That came from the quiet seasons nobody was watching. 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 13 says Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed David in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. The anointing happened in one moment. The preparation for what the anointing required took years. God never contradicted himself. He was simply building what the promise needed before the promise could land. He is protecting you from a version of the answer that would have cost you more than it gave you. This is the truth that requires the most trust, because it asks you to believe that God's no or not yet is just as intentional as his yes. There are relationships that seemed right, that you prayed for, that felt like they were aligned with what God had been showing you, and they did not work out. There are opportunities that looked like open doors that quietly closed before you walked through them. There are seasons you invested everything in that ended without producing what you expected. And the temptation is to interpret all of that as evidence that God is withholding, or that you are behind, or that the promises you believed were not actually for you. But Psalm chapter 84 verse 11 says, "No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly." If it was withheld, it was not the good thing. It looked like it. It may have felt like it. But God, who sees what you cannot see from your current position, saw something ahead of it that made keeping it from you the most loving decision he could make. Not every closed door is a missed blessing. Some closed doors are protection from a future that would have quietly broken something you cannot afford to lose. He is forming the depths in you that the surface seasons cannot reach. Psalm 139 verse 15 says, "My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth." The formation happened in secret, in depth, out of sight. And what was built there was permanent in a way that surface-level seasons simply cannot produce. Every woman who has ever come out of a prolonged quiet season with an unshakable faith, with a rootedness in God that no external circumstance could disturb, with a clarity about who she is that does not require anyone else's confirmation to stay intact, built that in a season that felt, from the inside, like nothing was happening. The depth was being formed in the quiet. The roots were growing underground. And roots always grow down before anything grows up. He is writing the story in a way that will make sense from the ending and could not have been understood from the middle. This is the part that requires patience, because it is asking you to trust an author you cannot always hear while you are living inside the chapter he is writing. Genesis chapter 50 verse 20 says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph said this at the end of his story. He could not have said it in the pit. He could not have said it in the prison. He could not have said it during any of the seasons where all the evidence pointed to abandonment rather than purpose. But from the ending, looking back, the story was coherent. Every detail was necessary. Not one piece of the painful middle was wasted. And the salvation of many lives, the thing that gave meaning to everything Joseph walked through, could not have happened through any other path. Your story is being written from outside of time by someone who already knows the ending. The chapter you are currently in is not the conclusion. It is part of the movement toward one. And movements, by definition, require tension before resolution. He is moving things you cannot see toward a convergence you cannot yet imagine. Ruth did not know that the day she walked into Boaz's field was the day that would redirect everything. Boaz did not know, when he went to work that morning, that the woman God had been preparing for his life would be standing in his field by afternoon. Every piece of that story was in motion before either of them knew the other existed. Ruth chapter 2 verse 3 says, "As it turned out, she found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz." As it turned out, that is what providential alignment looks like from the human side. It looks like coincidence. It looks like a small, unremarkable decision going to this field instead of that one, that happened to land her exactly where she needed to be. But from God's side, that field was always where she was going. The right people, the right conversations, the right doors are already in motion. They are heading toward you. The convergence is being arranged by someone who does not need your help managing the timeline. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." He knows them. Not he is working on them. Not he hopes to have them ready soon. He knows them. Present tense. Complete. Settled. The quiet season is not wasted time. It is not a detour. It is not evidence that your faith was insufficient or your prayers were not heard. It is the season where everything permanent gets built. Where what cannot be shaken gets established. Where the woman your answered prayer requires is being quietly, carefully, intentionally formed. Stay in it. Keep trusting. Keep showing up in the ordinary daily faithfulness that nobody is applauding. Because what is being built in the quiet is the very thing that will hold everything coming next. Write in the comments, "Lord, I trust what you are doing in the seasons I cannot see." And if you know someone sitting in a quiet season right now wondering if anything is happening, send this to her today. She needs to know that the silence is not the absence of God. It is the sound of Him working. God bless you deeply. I will see you in the next one.